Okay, so part two of the wiring for this little AC compressor. Right now, I've got it hooked up to the original trigger wire that would have been used for the stock AC compressor on my 94 Jeep Cherokee. This one is kind of easy because the ECM actually controls the compressor, and it uses a low pressure switch and it uses a thermal switch that goes into the evaporator itself. The evaporator I'm using on this, all my lines and everything, they're out of an '01, the newest model that you can actually get that would fit in this Cherokee. You got a brand new condenser in this thing, brand new orifice tube, and the only lines that aren't brand new are the ones that are the soft lines, because you can see that's kind of podunk and that's not what you want to keep up here. And I'm just doing this for some testing. This is round two for testing with this thing. It worked. I'm pulling a vacuum on it now. As you can see, it's actually holding a pretty solid vacuum. I'm surprised because that right there is not legit. That is definitely not legit, but it's working, so I'm kind of happy about that. I've already put some Freon in this thing one time before. Last week, me and my wife and took the kids, we went down, went to the beach. We're gone for a week, so she's really adamant about having AC with the babies and everything. So that's the whole purpose of putting this in here. I have really no want for AC at this point. I'm used to sweating. I do it for a living every day, so it is what it is. The only thing that this unit did not have that I was concerned about is a thermal break. So sometimes they are actually built into the windings. I've torn apart some old, and I mean old, like 1970s DC motors, and they've actually had snap caps built into the windings. The operating temperature of this thing is 185 degrees Fahrenheit, which is less than the operating temperature of this Jeep. So I had to get fancy with this thing. And that's what I did last week. I've been building this entire airbox system. So came over here, deleted the OG airbox because everybody wants to do that anyways. It gives you a lot of fun space. Rerouted this elbow, made this tube up, made this airbox that uses the factory filter. And what that does is actually uses the engine to pull air in through these little holes. I've got a cap made up for this thing right over here by my stuff. And what it's going to do is have a tube that goes into the cowl, and it's going to be cowl induction versus, you know, sucking hot air. The only downside is that ECM actually uses the engine intake to cool off the ECM. Because, you know, that's where your airbox would actually draw air from, is right there on the side of where the ECM's pulling air through, where you got all that friggin' that's where it's yeah, this thing is, I don't know, I forgot. But it doesn't really do a whole lot, because that side of the motor is also where the exhaust is, and that side of the motor is hot as it gets. We don't want to do that. I try to keep everything off that side. So to prevent any overheating, I ran the fan for the AC up in my hood vents, and hopefully that works. The only downside, now that I'm going to pulp fiction this thing up a little bit and go back to the wiring, is this compressor is going to cycle like that compressor would, and the whole purpose of an inverter compressor is for it to vary its RPM. So it's supposed to range between, I think, 1,000 and 3,000. I mean, that's the information I'm reading about it, but I don't know if any of it's legit. And what that would do is vary your RPM, obviously, versus cycling the compressor that's running off the thermal switch inside your airbox. And, you know, that would keep you from freezing your condenser, or your evaporator, excuse me. So that way you don't frost up and you don't get, your lines don't get all frozen. We'll see what it does. Right now, I'm not really concerned about it. It's only been on vacuum for about 30 minutes, but I've already pulled a vacuum on this thing overnight, so I'm just going to run it the way it is and start putting some stuff in here and get back with you.